Our final segment is predictions for what we think is going to happen. Eric, I want you to start thinking of a second prediction. You're going to go last. We accidentally used up your prediction in the last segment. Think of something crazy to say to end the show. But we'll begin with Denny's prediction. What is your prediction for draft weekend?
I just from grinding the blurbs, folks, I get the overriding sense that the Lions are going to come away with Anthony Richardson one way or another. Okay. Whether it's very early or in the late first round, depending on, where other quarterbacks land, I don't believe Dan Campbell and the Lions brass when they say we're good with Jared Goff for the long term. I don't believe that. I think this is a team that will do anything to score points and to win. And Anthony Richardson, as we've said many, many times over the past however many years we've been covering this draft, Anthony Richardson is an amazing prospect. And really, really, look, if you and I don't know, Eric, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but the issues with the short area passing, according to folks in the know, are very fixable, and they can be kind of smoothed over time. So I don't think teams should be necessarily too worried about that. I think the Lions get Richardson.
Eric has some breaking Richardson thoughts that he's going to share with us here.
Well, actually, I mean, I appreciate Denny using the phrase "one way or another." Well-known Blondie tune.
I knew you were going to get that.
I really appreciate that, Denny. Thank you. That being said, I think you make a good point about AR. He's 20 years old still.
Yeah.
Right? When you look at the art of projecting QBs, the reason why Bill Parcells, Belichick, and those guys, and the old heads, we're keeping it 80s and 90s today. The reason why they like quarterbacks that are a little bit longer in the tooth or have had 3 years of starting experience is you can see how they react in pressure situations. You can see what needs to be done. You can see what needs to be fixed, and you can identify that and really, go through it and scout them and parse their skills. It's hard when you have somebody only started 13 games, 1 year starter. The footwork is certainly, all over the place at times. But he has those raw tools that are they're the most tantalizing athletic traits that any quarterback's ever had in the history of the combine.
Right.
So with all that, the big arm is legit. It's just a matter of settling him in, getting him comfortable, allowing him to feel, the rush around him, step up, and just get into that comfort zone. I think he needs a full year. Denny, I understand why you went with him at 6. You got the Jared Goff plan and then the handoff. I'm going just one spot later. I think the Raiders take him. And if the Raiders do be it at 7, I actually love, from a gambling perspective, he's currently plus 1,100, Anthony Richardson, to be taken at that 7 spot by the Raiders. I think that's great value. It's great odds. And if you look at the Jimmy G experiment, I know that Las Vegas is going to want to get out of the Jimmy G experiment within a year. They need a jumping off point here. I think that with Mark Davis, we've seen how the Raiders draft from their id. Okay, Alex Leatherwood, here he is. Henry Ruggs, he ran fast. So I see the Raiders being absolutely enamored with the physical traits, the package that he has, the upside. Put him under Josh McDaniels. Let him sit under the learning tree and go. So that is what I would like. That's my prediction. I am at odds with my friend.
I hope for his sake he's not drafted by the Raiders.
Me too. I mean, the Raiders like to take big swings, though, and Josh McDaniels, is quite literally the man who took Tim Tebow in the first round. So we know he's willing to go off board, and you wouldn't actually be going off board with Anthony Richardson. Do you think? So it seems like we think he's going in the top 10. So we're basically saying 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 10. So I kind of think this is really interesting. And Anthony Richardson to Seattle might be the best for his career, or maybe Detroit too, because maybe he would sit for a year. I do think so. The NFL seems to be believing in the sit for a year model again, and it certainly stands to reason. Anthony Richardson, it might be I know you learn by playing, but it just almost be unfair after 13 pretty uneven college games. Hey, guess what? The Sharks, you're going to be thrown to them. Have fun. like it seemed like he could maybe benefit from the sitting a year model, especially like a stable franchise like Seattle, or a franchise against all odds becoming more stable in Detroit. Raiders, not so much, though. That would be very, very concerning if he ended up there. But yeah, 20 years old, that athletic package, there's no way that's getting outside the top 10. There just isn't. Kyle, to end the show, what is your prediction for what's going to happen on draft weekend?
I've got another quarterback sitting, runway to starting next year prediction. It is by hook or by crook, Hendon Hooker to the Vikings. I don't know. I doubt they have to move up to get him. I know we've seen more buzz from pundits that he could go early in the first. I think really the realistic buzz they're getting is that he's a guy in that Lamar Jackson territory where maybe they want that they want the 5th-year option tacked onto his contract. He's a quarterback, and that's really valuable for a guy like him for the flexibility that gives that team. And his production profile at Tennessee was just unreal. I mean, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in college football. It was like pretty on track for a Heisman before tearing his ACL. And that probably means he has to sit behind someone. That means he's not going to, or at least a team that needs a quarterback right away is not loving that they're getting him, because they're probably losing a bunch of games until he's ready. Because not only is he coming back from the knee injury, but he played in an offense that admittedly really did him a lot of favors, boosting his stats. And I still think he was like physically capable of making throws at all levels of the field, but he wasn't asked with doing as much like cognitively. He just wasn't processing as much. He was having more open receivers than most quarterbacks. Well, that's perfect. Get him in an offense. We'll get him essentially on a team that he probably doesn't have to start in the entirety of the 2023 season. And that is the Minnesota Vikings are taking him when they pick at 24, something like that. They could probably even trade back, but I think if you want a quarterback, you're just taking him there, right? Kirk Cousins, a free agent in the upcoming off season. And I think that relationship has been more, let's play it year by year. And finally, they have an off ramp. They haven't had really a chance. Like, this past offseason, what do they do to get out of Kirk Cousins? They're bombing. They're playing for a future season. Whereas you understand what the roster they have, why they'd say, let's try and make the smooth transition. Let's try and get from what is a good but not great roster, despite their record last year, a good but not great roster. Let's keep that ball rolling with potentially a higher ceiling quarterback. So I think they take Hooker. He probably sits for most of his rookie season. But that's good. The team is set up perfectly for that type of player.
We'll find out if it's actually a good roster or not. And I would say the first step to addressing your Kirk Cousins problem is admitting you have a Kirk Cousins problem. The Vikings have found very, very hard to do.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay? Respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.